Its sound moved through the narrow streets of the town like a familiar breath, soft, dull, unavoidable. It did not startle anyone awake. It did not need to. The people had learned its rhythm long ago. Their bodies responded before their minds did. Thomas opened his eyes without thinking. The room was dark, lit only by a thin line of grey creeping through a crack in the wooden shutters. The air was cold, sharp enough to sting his lungs as he breathed. He did not groan. He did not stretch. There was no moment of negotiation between comfort and duty. He simply sat up. The straw mattress beneath him shifted and rustled, releasing the dry smell of old hay. He had slept on it his entire life. It scratched his skin through the thin linen shirt he wore, but he barely noticed. Discomfort, like silence, had become background noise. Thomas's feet touched the dirt floor. The earth was hard and cool. Somewhere outside, another door opened. Somewhere else, a cough echoed. The town was waking. Not because it wanted to, but because it always did. He reached for the wooden bowl by the wall and poured water from a clay jug. The water was icy. It had been drawn from the well the evening before. He splashed it on his face once, then again, letting the cold burn chase away the last remnants of sleep. There was no mirror to check his reflection. No reason to. He dressed quickly, pulling on the same wool tunic he had worn the day before and the day before that. The fabric was thick, coarse, and smelled faintly of smoke. His trousers were patched at the knee, the stitching uneven but strong. His boots were stiff with dried mud. These were not choices, they were habits. In the corner of the room, a small loaf of dark bread waited, wrapped in cloth. He broke off a piece, chewed slowly, and washed it down with a few mouthfuls of weak ale. The taste was sour, but familiar. It filled his stomach just enough. Thomas did not wonder what else he might eat. Wandering wasted time. Outside, the town revealed itself in layers of grey and brown. The buildings leaned toward one another as if sharing secrets, their wooden beams dark with age. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, rising into the pale morning sky. The bell's echo faded, but its work was done. People moved through the streets in predictable patterns. The baker was already awake, his hands dusted with flour, kneading dough with slow, practiced motions. He did not rush. Bread took time, and time could not be argued with. The blacksmith's fire glowed orange in the dim light. He lifted his hammer and brought it down on hot iron, again and again, the sound ringing out like a heartbeat. Each strike was the same as the last. His muscles remembered the work even when his mind drifted. Children carried water from the well, their steps careful, their buckets heavy. Women swept doorways. Men gathered tools. No one spoke much. Words were saved for necessity. Thomas walked toward the edge of town, where the road met the fields. His job today was the same as it had been yesterday, repairing stones loosened by rain and wagon wheels. The road mattered. Without it, trade slowed. Without trade, hunger followed. He bent down, lifted a stone, and placed it back into the earth. Then another. The motion was simple. Lift, set, press, step back. At first, when he had been younger, Thomas used to count the stones. He had stopped doing that years ago. Numbers faded. The work remained. As the sun climbed higher, warmth slowly returned to the air. Sweat formed beneath his tunic. His hands grew sore, the skin rough and cracked. He wiped his brow with his sleeve and continued. There was no thought of quitting early. The idea had never occurred to him. Around midday, he sat with the other workers and ate in silence. More bread, a piece of onion, a sip of ale. Someone laughed briefly at a small joke, then the quiet returned. Thomas looked at the horizon, where fields stretched out under the sky. He had walked those fields since childhood. He knew where the ground dipped, where the soil was thin, where stones hid beneath the surface, waiting to catch an unwary foot. This knowledge lived in his body, not his thoughts. Once, long ago, he had asked his father why they worked the way they did, day after day, season after season. His father had shrugged. "This is how we live," he had said. That answer had been enough. In the afternoon, a small group of travellers passed through town. Their clothes were different, cleaner, lighter. One of them spoke loudly, telling stories of distant places where markets were larger and food more plentiful. Some of the townspeople listened with mild curiosity. Others barely looked up. Thomas listened for a moment, then returned to his work. Stories were pleasant. But they did not fix roads. As the light softened toward evening, the bell rang again. Not to command, but to release. Work ended the same way it began. Thomas's muscles ached as he walked home. His hands throbbed, but the pain was familiar, almost comforting. It reminded him that the day had been useful. At home, he ate supper by firelight. A thin stew, mostly water and vegetables. He ate slowly, savouring the warmth. Outside, night settled over the town. There was no entertainment. No distraction. Just the quiet crackle of fire and the steady rhythm of breath. Thomas lay down on the straw mattress once more. His body sank into it, exhausted but calm. Tomorrow would be the same. The bell would ring. He would rise. He would work. And because of that sameness, because of that unbroken habit, he would survive. His eyes closed before the thought finished forming. The bell would take care of the rest. There was no sound to command him. No obligation pressing against his ribs. Only the faint vibration of his phone on the nightstand, buzzing softly, then stopping, then buzzing again. He did not open his eyes right away. The bed was warm. Too warm. The mattress moulded itself to his body, as if encouraging him to stay exactly where he was. The blanket rested lightly on his chest, rising and falling with each breath. Nothing hurt. Nothing demanded anything. That, somehow, made it harder to move. When Daniel finally reached for the phone, the room filled with blue light. Notifications stacked on the screen. Messages, news alerts, reminders he had set and ignored. He scrolled without thinking, thumb moving on its own, eyes half open. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. There was no bell to tell him he was late. Eventually, guilt did what habit could not. Daniel sat up slowly, rubbing his face. His body felt heavy, as if sleep had not restored him at all. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood, wincing slightly at a dull ache in his lower back. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. He walked to the kitchen, stepping around yesterday's laundry, past a sink with a few unwashed dishes. He started the coffee maker, not because he wanted coffee, but because he always did. While it brewed, he checked his phone again. More scrolling. More noise. Daniel worked from home. His job required little physical effort, and even less routine. Tasks could be done anytime, so they were often done late. Deadlines existed, but they were soft, forgiving, negotiable. Unlike medieval life, nothing truly broke if he delayed. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop. A video began playing in the background. Something labelled, Boring History for Sleep. He had clicked it the night before and forgotten to turn it off. A calm voice spoke about medieval villages, about bells and routines, about people who woke and slept by habit rather than choice. Daniel paused his work and listened. The narrator described cold mornings, rough clothing, simple meals. No comfort, no distraction, just repetition. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Those people were tough, he muttered. But the thought lingered longer than usual. At lunch, Daniel reheated leftovers and ate them standing up, eyes on his phone. He read about productivity systems, morning routines, discipline. Everyone seemed to have advice. None of it stayed. After eating, he felt sleepy. He lay back down, just for a moment. An hour disappeared. When he woke again, his heart jumped with anxiety. The day felt wasted. He stared at the ceiling, mind racing, body unmoving. That night, unable to sleep, Daniel returned to the history videos. He imagined himself waking in a medieval town. No phone beside the bed. No soft mattress. No second chances. He imagined the cold floor under his feet. The rough fabric against his skin. The bell ringing, whether he was ready or not. The thought made his chest tighten. He realized something unsettling. Without comfort, he had no structure. Without structure, he had no strength. Medieval people did not wait for motivation. They did not search for meaning each morning. Habit carried them forward, step by step, day by day. Daniel turned off the video and lay in the dark. The next morning, he set an alarm, not a pleasant one. When it rang, he stood up immediately, before his mind could argue. The movement felt abrupt, almost rude. He made his bed carefully. The act felt pointless and deliberate. In the kitchen, he ate a simple breakfast. No phone, no music, just chewing, breathing, standing in the quiet. The silence was uncomfortable, but it was also steady. The first day felt awkward. The second felt slightly easier. By the fourth day, Daniel noticed he no longer needed to think as much in the mornings. His body moved ahead of his thoughts. Like Thomas, he began to understand something history rarely explained outright. Comfort weakens decision-making. Habit removes the need for it. As the weeks passed, Daniel simplified more. Fixed sleep time, fixed meals, fixed work hours. The choices he removed were replaced by calm. His energy returned slowly, almost unnoticed. One evening, lying in bed, Daniel realized he was tired in a good way. Not the restless exhaustion of overstimulation, but the deep, earned fatigue of completion. He smiled faintly. Modern people, he thought, would not last a day in medieval times, not because they were weaker, but because they had forgotten how to let habit carry them. The bell never rang for Daniel, so he built one himself. And for the first time in a long while, sleep came quickly, quietly, without effort.